He honore, he klorea, he mai ngā rongo ki te mato te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Aro haina ngā teina me ngā tuakani I raro I te whakaro kotahi, I raro I tēnei o tēnei whare. Ka tika me mihi atu rā ki tauranga moana, ngai te rangi ngā te rangi nui, tangata he iwi hei manaaki, I a mātou kei Waikato I ngā rā ōmua tēnei te mihi atu. E mihi ana kia tātou katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Okay, we've had 3 substantial speeches and I was told as I came into the room, you're the last one. And it's always really difficult to be the last person to speak in any forum, but in particular on these issues with people who are so knowledgeable and connected to the challenge that we all have, which is to ensure that we're building a fairer society by ensuring that diversity, equity and inclusion is the norm, not an exception to the norm. And so this is the challenge because we are all political activists for change that can take our nation to a different place. Now I stand here before you and I'm not who you think I am, to the extent that after 27 years in politics, it has weathered me. Yes. And I have been counted in and counted out. I've been othered, I've been mothered, and just at the last election, there was quite a vicious campaign to cancel me out altogether. But that hasn't made me a negative person, that's informed the way that I think about things and contribute to the types of issues that can help to transform communities in positive ways, but also help to transform the types of conversations that I'm a part of. So here's my, view on allyship. I think the things that I value are the things that I contribute to. And I value my culture. I value the way that we think about things. I value whanaungatanga, connectedness to each other, but not just exclusively within a whānau, a hapu and a niwi, to each other as people. When I see someone, I accept who's showing up every day in the way that they show up, whether they're neurodiverse, whether they're from the LGBTQI community, whether they're young, old, culturally diverse, and I might be able to explain that, ethnically diverse, diversity in all its shapes and forms. And I do that because fundamentally, whanaungatanga is an important value that I hold on to, our connectedness to self, to the taiao, and to each other. I also value manaakitanga. I do this on the basis that I know inherently if we have a connectedness to others, we share a responsibility for each other. And so our ability to look after one another, especially in times of need, is so important. And we express that in all sorts of ways, checking in when we know someone's going through a difficult time, trying to navigate the waters by not being too over the top, but enough to know that you're there and present. And the way that we do that within a whānau should be the way that we do that within a community, checking in, manaakitanga, offering that support and help, especially in hard times. Aroha. Now, aroha, loosely referred to as love for one another, but I think I do like the description that you gave. Fundamentally, if we are where we need to be as a society because diversity and inclusion is the norm, then we are speaking into a place of our common humanity. And I have an inherent belief that that is when we know we've arrived in some shape or form, because we can have those conversations. But we're navigating towards, I think, a better place for all of us when we are brave enough to be the political activists on these types of issues. The other thing is mana. Now, often when you hear mana expressed, people might refer to it as sovereignty or power or something like that. I prefer to think of it as an inherent respect for your uniqueness. An inherent respect for your uniqueness, which is within the context of, say, a relationship or a relationship that you're forming, is you show up as you, I show up as me, we have a conversation, we figure out what do we share in common. This is how I approached diplomacy, because no one ever told you when you become Foreign Minister, there's actually no rule book or playbook about how to do foreign affairs. I do relationships really good. I got to difficult conversations very quickly because I knew that if we couldn't have the difficult conversation on some challenged spaces within a relationship, we were never going to have move towards the direction that we had to move to. And the reason for that is it would all be platitudes. Well, who wants to be in a role like Foreign Affairs if you can't actually take things further and farther? That is why when we had the challenge with the pilot that had been taken over in West Papua, the conversation with that Foreign Minister, to the extent that I can talk about it, was pretty much one of humanity. He's a man and a father, he is a husband, he has a family who is worried about him. You know, we need him home safely, and we need to have the kinds of conversations going forward on this issue that actually puts this person as a real person, real name, not just a number or a political widget. And I don't mind saying that for all the times that I was criticised for the actions that I was taking, I put humanity back into the way that we did diplomacy. And the reason why is because New Zealand is, by and large, the kind of country that can be brave enough to step outside of norms and to exercise our values. Engaging with the Palestinian community on Iran after the killing of Masha, creating a forum where there was direct engagement between myself and the Iranian community. Those all exemplified mana. People show up, they are concerned, they want their voices heard. We have to create forums and platforms when we are in the position to be able to do that, so that we hear real time the concerns, but not only that, try and figure out then, so what actions need to be taken in order to create greater connection on this particular kaupapa issue. Maybe I got my early teachings on the way that I ended in politics from some of my earliest challenges. When I first started in Parliament, I was too young to have an opinion. In fact, I was given very sharp advice. You use this first term to breathe through the nose and don't say much, if anything at all. That was my political induction into Parliament. And I was encouraged to go to Parliament by Māori women. They said we need more young, educated Māori women in that place who can stand up for us. Little did they know that was the environment that they sent me into. And then, assuming a level of responsibility, I go back into my own culture, my own tribe, and not have places freely available to speak because culturally women had a certain role. So I found myself juxtaposed between a challenging place in a foreign environment, a familiar place, but I had different roles and responsibilities, but it became more foreign, and had to navigate my way through that. So I have appreciated as a Māori woman now that it's my responsibility to continue to create open places for women. And if I can do anything to mentor or lend support or provide help and assistance in any way that's asked of me, I'll do it. And I will do it because I'm committed to ensuring that young women who go into similar places and spaces that I've been into, they don't have to put up with the crap that I did. The other element of, I guess, the challenge is recognising the opportunity. And recognising the opportunity can come with unanticipated consequences. I'll speak briefly to the local government portfolio and how I tried to, in real time, tackle some of the issues that I saw that left me a little bit estranged from some of the policy thinking that was prepared to kind of move in certain places, and then from a community point. But the appointment of commissioners, for example, here in Tauranga, you know, heavily charged issue, and having identified where all the pinch points were around that, and trying to reset the dynamics there, it was a little bit of kind of practical lived experience where if it's going to hurt, but in order to get to a better place, you've probably got to make a harder decision, but it is going to hurt. And I tried to put that kind of humanity into a very difficult decision to ensure the objective was to try and get to a different place. Tauranga is growing far too fast, and it needed strategic thinking, and it needed to prepare the ground for the type of democracy that was going to be reflective of a broader set of interests in this region. And there are many other reasons, but primarily that's what kind of held my resolve to go down that pathway in this instance. Similarly with water issues, I really wanted local government to be the place where all the conversations were around the combined well-beings, health, social, environmental, physical, economic, and that local placemaking and democracy operating in an inclusive and full way for the benefit of communities would deliver that. But the only reason why we couldn't really get to there at that point is because all the discussions were around the finances and how much infrastructure cost and how ill prepared we were as a nation in terms of our infrastructure network to deal with these substantial challenges. So insert a heavily charged political issue that I led, and I got criticised in all sorts of ways. She's not a good communicator, you know. She hasn't thought the issues through, but the numbers won't lie. I tell you, I'm happy to be challenged again and again on this issue, because if we're still here in 20 years' time, no one wanted to look under the bonnet enough to take responsibility. And when they had the opportunity to do it, everyone balked. And so, you know, I think it's speaking and tying into some of the comments that have been made tonight. You're not always in a popular space if you're going to do things that are trying to ensure that there is inclusion. And to that point, you need a lot of resolve, self-care, be kind to yourself, but also be resolute. Be resolute. And that's been the experience that I've had to take through with me into some of these settings. Now, many of you wouldn't know that, even though I've spoken about it at various speeches, but as a young person I suffered quite a bit from anxiety. And it would stop me doing things, and there'd be a lot of internal kind of questioning and self-talk that wasn't altogether positive in terms of how you navigate difficult things. And so I had to learn strategies. I had to learn strategies for myself so that I could get to a period in my life where I could identify, you know, if anxiety was going to creep in, and then continue to encourage positive self-talk. Without this being a group therapy session, I'm happy to say that by around about my late 20s, early 30s, I think I cracked my code. But what that taught me all the way through up until that age was that whole self-reflection and being able to reach out and ask for assistance and help from people who could provide that gave me greater empathy and compassion, because kind people will help you in your time of need, and then you can only but pay it forward. And whatever challenge you're facing, and many of you might relate to that, but that is certainly my experience on what inevitably was a hard part of me growing up. I think if I kind of go back to the values, because this is a formula for allyship, whanaungatanga, connectedness, Manaakitanga to be able to care for others in a empathetic, compassionate, but also sometimes tough love way. You know, manaakitanga is not all rosy. Sometimes it can be. I choose not to help you in that way because that's creating a dependency which won't be good. You get that, right? We've talked about this. We're here to grow together, and I'm here to support your growth. That's a good example of a conversation I've had. Aroha, being able to exercise care, due diligence, support, awhi, especially in difficult times. Mana, standing in your own authority and recognising everybody shows up like that. So you're seeing the whole person inside and out. Mahitahi is the practical reflection of it, getting stuff done. You know, finding out a shared objective. Okay, right, is that what we can agree on? Cool, let's move that forward. So my political lessons were all about having a whole lot of conversations, doing relationship, figuring out how far I could move the dial on the things that I knew would make a difference for the communities that I serve. Comment was made about the hikoi for Toitu Te Tiriti. And there is a conscientisation of young Māori coming through now who won't accept that we have to revisit things that were really well founded in New Zealand, like the treaty. They won't accept it. I challenge those in my own community who join the hikoi to say, it's one thing to protest, but then where's the solution? Where are we going with this? Because we too need allies. We need friends. We need to explain what is the vision here. Because it's more than a karakia, it's more than a mihi, it's more than acknowledgement. It's actually about our shared objective of national identity and nationhood. That's the objective. That's why our young people, I think, are so triggered by the fact that there is selective amnesia and all the things that they've been taught. And I have an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old. All the things that they've been taught about being affirmed as who they are as tangata whenua is being challenged, and they won't accept it. So we have to, within our Māori community, we're having these conversations and we're trying to educate ourselves so that we can be better proponents of going out to support allies who do want to help, who are just as concerned as us, who want to go create this sense of nationhood, national identity, where there is inclusion, where there is diversity, and it's a given. It's not an exception to the rule, not a nice thing to do. Last thing I'll say, because there was a comment around the board table. I happen to be on a couple of boards, and there's a woman around the board table in decision making. I am absolutely flabbergasted at some of the jokes that are made that are totally inappropriate, and also the active invisible treatment. So when it's an economic question, immediately, or finances or the risk, they'll turn to the men around the table. When it's social issues, cultural issues, or people-related issues, they'll turn to the woman in the room. You cannot be... You know, this cannot be the case, but it is. So it just goes to show that we have to link hands with other women in strategic ways so that we're growing our capacity to contribute to diversity, equity, inclusion, and meritocracy, because they all coexist around the board table, and I won't let anyone tell me otherwise. You know, we just can't have it. Nō reira, he te takuiti. Ka tāpiri atu ki ēnei kōrero. Mine is only a small portion that I've tried to weave through some of the key points that were made tonight. I feel more informed for being able to be here with you as a panel, and I appreciate the lessons and the tips, and I also appreciate everyone's commitment to not only share but activate towards good, to be kind, Mo reira tīnā koutou katoa.